Yeah, the call wild's always bringing me home. Call wild's always bringing me home. Call wild's always bringing me home.
Hello, wild ones, and welcome to another episode of the Find Your Wild podcast. I'm so excited to have Ben Bluhm here, wildlife photographer. I hope that's how you pronounce your last name. Okay.
It is.
Perfect. We connected on Instagram, and I'm so excited to be able to chat with you further tonight.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I just saw you posted your 500 post on Instagram. It was a beautiful picture. I would pull it up if I was more technologically savvy, but I'll link your Instagram in the description here. So that was a gorgeous picture. What type of animal was that?
That was a desert kit fox.
Oh, cool. They're very beautiful looking too.
They're honestly one of my favorite canines, and their habitat's super limited, and their population is kind of dwindling because of habitat loss and pressure from other predators that have been pushed into their habitat, like
Mhm.
red foxes. Yeah, you can only find them basically in the desert. So fun
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool. So basically, if people don't know who you are, just I guess like state like where you're from and how you started wildlife photography.
So I actually grew up in the Boston area in Massachusetts. I've been out in the Mountain West for the last like 10 years. And I got into wildlife photography kind of in a convoluted way. I was dating someone at the time who was like pretty into it already, and I had never like done anything with photography. And so we started going to Yellowstone, and then things kind of went from there, and like our relationship didn't work out, but I took that hobby, that lifestyle away from that relationship, and it's just been something that has been kind of an obsessive lifestyle ever since for me. It's been like 4 years
Wow.
since I started.
Such a great hobby too, because it's like the ultimate I feel like I get very drawn to wildlife photographers too online. My algorithm's always like amazing pictures, so I really love it. But it's the ultimate like takeaway from nature too, like to be able to just capture like a picture, or now with video you could capture a little moment and you could take that away in the moment, but you don't have to actually take anything from nature. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I love that. And you also volunteer with the Utah Mountain Lion Conservation as well.
I do. Yeah, I've been involved for I think 3 years or so now. I do like the social media channels I post for our organization. In the past, I've also done a lot of field work and like working with our remote cameras that track like mountain lion movements and behaviors and stuff. And so, great, honestly, great organization. Denise Peterson is the director, and she is a fantastic individual and has taught me a lot. I can't say enough good things about her.
That's so cool. Yeah, mountain lions are absolutely like beautiful and stunning. So it's cool that you've gotten to kind of see different aspects of like how to capture them with the camera traps and um, working your way through and seeing them in a different way is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique perspective that not a lot of people get to have, which super grateful for.
Yeah. What is so like speaking of like wildlife photography and capturing moments and animals, what is on your wildlife bucket list that you haven't captured yet that you would
Oh,
like to?
great question. One of them is about to happen, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Some friends of mine and I are going to the northeast corner of British Columbia to try to photograph the Canada lynx. That has been a huge one on my bucket list personally. I did see one in Glacier National Park last year in June on a hiking trail, and it totally caught me off guard, and I didn't have a chance to take a photo of it because my camera was in my backpack, and it was a 5 second encounter or something like that. So that's coming up like in a couple weeks, actually. So hopefully that works out. A couple of other things like polar bears would be super cool. I want to go to Churchill, Canada,
Oh
which they
yeah.
call polar bear capital of the world. There's a few like Arctic wolves would be absolutely unbelievable. It's just an insanely expensive trip. It's up in like Ellesmere Island, where you get the
Mm,
true Arctic wolf with the white fur that is a separate genus than the gray wolf
right.
whose range extends really far north. And then just a few other ones. Like I'd love to go to Africa and do a safari, get cheetahs and leopards, lions, things like that. I'd love to go to India to photograph the Bengal tiger. That would be absolutely unbelievable. And then also at some point head down to South America and Brazil and the Pantanal, try to find jaguars, which would be
Mm.
super awesome. Um, and then, if you ask any wildlife photographer, most people's response to this would be the wolverine, which I don't know if that will ever happen for me, but it is the epitome of a bucket list animal.
Yeah, they're super rare, right?
They're extremely rare, yes.
And is I guess like is this something that's found in the United States by you?
Yeah, so great question there. There's a few in the lower 48. The population is estimated to be about 200. There have been a couple of sightings in Utah where I live, but those have been kind of freak encounters. There's known populations in Wyoming, in Montana. They did a reintroduction project in Washington, which in the Cascade Range, which is going pretty well from what I understand. There's also some in Idaho, and you can kind of find some disparate sightings in like Oregon and other parts of Washington. They're also doing an introduction project in Colorado, which is going to be pretty cool.
That's awesome. I love the hopefully the rebalancing of our ecosystems with these reintroduction projects. So,
Absolutely.
um, it would be really cool to see. Now, I know we like chatted on Instagram, like our first interaction was your post about the unfortunate hunting that's kind of going on with all of the wolves. So I actually talked about this a little bit with Sarah Hannafin. I don't know if you're familiar with her. But she's her Instagram name is or her handle's Wolf Girl Maine, and she
Yep.
she talks a lot about all
Mhm.
of like the wolf happenings and educating people on that. So we talked a little bit about that on one of my previous podcasts, but it's definitely very unfortunate. And I think what people don't realize is that packs like are pretty much familial members, and if you're killing one of the animals, there's a good chance that the pack could just disperse and you're, you know, not only just taking away, you know, a life, but somebody's family member. I mean, I personally see them that way, and I think that it's just very like the counterbalance also is like the ecosystem's very out of balance. So there's not an to me like in opinion, like I don't feel like there's enough of them to be able to warrant this. Just like, you know, like not even bringing up the fact that I just don't agree with it in general. Just I don't think that it makes sense. What's your thoughts on that?
We could fill several podcasts with my thoughts probably, but I'll try to
Yeah.
condense them to some higher level points here. So I totally agree, and something that people don't realize, especially people that either don't realize or don't care about, if you are a wolf hunter, trapper, or snarer, is definitely the interpack dynamics. Wolves are matriarchal, and excuse me, and they follow the alpha female, and then obviously the alpha male. And so if anything happens, especially to the alpha female, as we've seen with some Yellowstone wolf packs, like the Wapiti wolf pack, from a few years ago. They lost their alpha female, and they were one of the biggest packs in recorded history in the park. There a lot of them. I can't remember the exact number. It was over 20, and and they were gone basically for a year. People only had very fleeting sightings of them, if any, after the winter of 2022. And so I think it's just like I post a lot about wolves and try to spread real information and facts, because unfortunately what we found is that people that live in Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, or any other state that has a wolf population that has also a heavy ranching and farming dynamic as well, are unfortunately fed by generations of misinformation and either unknowing ignorance or willing ignorance on the facts of what's going on. And so, to your other point, there's only about 6,000, maybe 7,000 wolves in the contiguous United States, which a lot of people would contend is not a full recovery. We when the Yellowstone wolf introduction happened, the the success rate was definitely not one that we anticipated. Meaning that when that introduction happened, we did not think that very many wolves were going to make it, let alone make it outside of Yellowstone. But it's been a tremendous success, maybe the greatest conservation success story in United States history. And so we have exceeded the original like kind of goals and thresholds that were set in the mid 90s for wolf recovery. And so now state governments in the Northern Rockies would tell you that we are beyond the thresholds that were originally agreed upon. Those thresholds were made with extremely limited data um, because we didn't have any wolves in the contiguous United States to study for quite some time. And so now that we have reached the level of thousands and not hundreds, with about 1,000 wolves in Idaho, just under that number in Montana, and then about 700 in Wyoming right now. Um, that that ratio of like wolves to livestock loss, wolves to elk herd population, it is very favorable on the side of ranchers, livestock producers, and then people that hunt elk. It's you see we have tens of thousands of elk hunted every year in the Northern Rockies, at least 20,000 in each of those states every year. Um, and there's over 100,000 elk in each of these states. Anyway, I can go on, but yeah, those are some of my thoughts about the
Yeah.
wolf reintroduction and kind of how wolves are perceived right now, especially from people that are on the, what I would say, the other side, the dark side, as far as wolf hunting and trapping is concerned.
Yeah, no, that's really great because that's some information that I actually didn't know myself because I'm from New York, so I don't know the
Hmm.
intricacies of um and then the problem of like Yellowstone, and obviously the wolves don't know if you go outside Yellowstone
Hmm.
that's hunting,
Hmm.
okay. So there's a lot of intricacies to this that's I think that we talk about a lot with, or at least I talk about a lot with other people, is conservation isn't just a one size fit all. It's unfortunately that would make it a lot easier if we could do that, but it's not that way, and it does make it very difficult to try to figure out these problems. I mean, and it is amazing that it is such a success story and such a balance. But I think that, with obviously like the bad that comes with it, like there's also like this, okay, we have so much science and facts to support like different methods for ranchers to use in regards to keeping their cattle or territory safe. And um I know that even my friend Aspen, she's also a wildlife photographer in North
Hmm.
Carolina.
Yeah.
I actually just went to go visit her. That was an amazing trip too. But she did some of her like graduate or college graduate degree in Africa, and I was lucky enough to be there for her giving a speech to a couple of other college students while I was down there, and they were talking about different ways that in Africa that they deal with predator loss in regards to cattle and everything like that. And there's like a certain flag system, or like you have to like change the flags or. Hi, wild ones. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Find Your Wild podcast. This episode is brought to you by my clothing brand Femme Sauvage, and I'm going to link that in the description below along with a little discount code for you. Be sure to check it out. We also donate $5 with each of our animal designs towards specific charities. I will also have those in the description below. And enjoy the rest of the episode. Thanks so much for listening. Anyways, what my friend Aspen was basically trying to say with, there are different ways that are scientifically proven with lights, flags, guard dogs. So there's a lot of different ways that, that I feel like we could be creative. Sorry, I don't know if you heard that was my son. But getting ready for bed. But yeah, there's different ways that scientifically we can go about that, and that it would be, I think, more, I know it's not necessarily the easier way, it's the harder way. but I think nature deserves it. Nature deserves our care and consideration, considering that it's so out of balance. And I think that what people don't understand is like the connection to like when the earth is in balance, when nature's in balance, it's going to actually be more beneficial for us too.
100% agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you hearing an echo on your side? I think I'm hearing myself
Oh,
echoing a little bit.
no, I don't hear an echo. If you want to, I don't know if it helps sometimes, maybe if you like exit out and then you could pop back in.
No, I think I just heard it from like your
Oh, my end.
screen, but
It might have been
yeah.
my son. It might have been my
Oh no, it's
son.
okay. Okay, all right. No, just wanted to make sure.
No worries. Sorry.
No, no problem.
Yeah. Um, yeah, he's excited for bedtime. So
Gotta love it.
yeah. Yeah, he just turned 3, so he's got a lot of energy that
I
I
bet it
wish I
does.
had. Yeah. So yeah, so I feel like there's definitely something that we could do, but I know that it's a pretty big hot topic that gets pushed back and forth a lot. But hopefully, I think that it's so important also with wildlife photography, videography, being able to like story tell the lives of these wolves and just other animals in general is so important, to be able to see that they are beings with like souls. And that, I mean, at least I do, like I have a little spiritual side to me, so I do like believe in like connecting but also like respecting nature. But I think that being able to share that with the world is super important too, because not everybody's lucky enough to be able to go out and see them for themselves, or I guess not realize that they want to, you know?
Yeah, I mean, when you say visual storytelling, it's like people, if people don't experience something, they typically don't care about that thing. And within the realm of wildlife photography, one of my like biggest goals, and it has been since day one, is just being able to make people care about the things that I care so deeply about, and capturing a photograph or a video of a wolf, a grizzly bear, any kind of wild cat, just any kind of species that's under duress. We can't tell the story without displaying the beauty of these animals. And people really connect with nature documentaries, and people visitorship to the parks are increasing every year because people want to have those same experiences, but you can't make people care until they see it, until they experience it, until they feel it, and the stories of a wolf encounter and everything that leads up to that experience are also vital in trying to illuminate just how unique and awesome these animals really are.
Yeah, 100%. They're definitely one of my favorite animals of all time. But I'm such an animal lover. I can't just pick one. But I would say they're top three for me. So yeah.
Cool.
Um, yeah. What would you say, like, how hard is it to capture like wolves when you go out like shooting, or like where do you usually go to capture these
Hmm.
pictures?
Great question. I would say like I'm in love with the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. That's Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks. I go pretty often to both of those areas, and I've definitely had much better like wolf luck in Yellowstone. I haven't seen, excuse me, wolves in the Tetons until this year,
Mm,
and had some really awesome encounters in Grand Teton in this past spring. But um, honestly, like getting you can see wolves probably every day in Yellowstone if you use a spotting scope. If you just follow the crowds and follow the people that are pointing and looking through a scope. But in order to have like a photography encounter, which when they're not like a dot on the landscape, it is
right.
pretty difficult. And so the reason why I go back to Yellowstone so much, it's a much more remote and much bigger area than Grand Teton. It's harder to access, harder to you don't really have cell phone service or anything. But I go back to Yellowstone because of the wolves and because of the experiences that I've had there. So I like success rate and how hard is it to capture an image that is usable for social media or for anything is pretty difficult. And I would say that uh, I don't have like a ratio or anything or a percentage, but it's
Sure.
it's definitely like 10% of the time at best. Or like if I spend a day, like I have to spend 1 or 10 days in Yellowstone for like one like good to great encounter. And it is a grind, and it's like you're out there before the sun even rises, and you're out there all day and trying to get lucky and do everything you can to be in the right place at the right time. But it is definitely pretty difficult, and not for the faint of heart for by any means.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people take for granted the pictures that you share were are very generous, because I'm sure the amount of hard work that goes into actually capturing it. Like, that's why I was interested in asking you, because I can imagine how hard it was. I mean, when I went down to North Carolina to go visit my friend, I was lucky enough to see the red wolves, but did not get a picture. I got to
Uh-huh.
see them in the distance, but I mean, I would
Uh-huh.
still say I'm pretty lucky, since there's only 16 of them, left in the wild down there.
Yeah.
So, uh, still very lucky to have gotten to see
Hmm.
them, but only a little dot on the screen. And
Yes.
that's a good point to like, with wildlife photography, it's often a journey to even get to even getting a close encounter. These are wild
Hmm.
animals. You're just trying to perchance find them, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's been like some of your favorite encounters with wildlife on your journey?
Excellent question, and I'll rattle off a few here. I would say like wolves by far my favorite animal, so I'll list a couple of those, and then get to a few other ones. But um, in the spring of 2022, we were coming back from the far reaches of the northern range in Yellowstone, and just trying to get back to Gardner, where we were staying. And right by Tower Junction, those that are familiar with Yellowstone will know where that is. Um, Looked and saw to my right a black wolf that was just
Mm.
approaching the road, which was absolutely does not happen very often that you're in the right place at the right time to have to be able to see a wolf approaching the road from your vehicle. And so we pulled over right away, and that black wolf uh, kind of got onto a midway point of this hill that was literally right on the side of the road and just sat down and stared at us. It was um, girlfriend of mine at the time. It was just the two of us looking right at this black wolf from probably about 50 yards, which is
Wow.
not every day that you get to see one that close. It just stared at us. It stared at us, and then it went to the top of the hill, and it sat down and still stared at us, and then it started howling. And it was
Oh,
just the two of us before a couple other people noticed what was like we're passing by and pulled over. But this wolf was just howling right there, and it was magnificent. And then a gray wolf came from behind the hill and was in this kind of field area right next to this hill. And so there were two wolves within 50 to 75 yards of the road, which is pretty dang close. And we got to see them just kind of lope around. You heard some howls back of the wolf pack in the distance. But really just got to see front and center with basically a closed audience, just wolf behavior like that, which was just sensational. And then the next spring in 2023, late April, there was a male grizzly bear on a carcass at Blacktail Ponds, which is right by Mammoth Hot Springs. Um, and this grizzly bear was pulling a frozen bison calf carcass out of a pond, and
mhm.
it was feeding on that and had been for several days. And this morning, I believe it was April 28th of 2023, I was driving down the road and almost at Blacktail Ponds when I saw a black wolf immediately to my left on the side of the road it was trotting in the direction of where that carcass was. And so what ensued was just probably the craziest wolf encounter I probably will ever have. There was a bunch of people pulled over for that bear, but out of from the distance, there was that black wolf that I saw that got there pretty quickly, and then there were two other wolves, a huge gray male and another black, younger kind of yearling black wolf, were all right by this grizzly bear, and the grizzly bear was defending the carcass. And this was like 60, 70 yards from the road. We were elevated on this
Wow.
pullout with like there were tons of people there. There were rangers there making sure the situation was okay. But we got to see these wolves play fight this grizzly bear to try to take this carcass from them. It had been a really long winter, and the wolves probably were really, really, really hungry. Same with the
Yeah.
grizzly bear coming out of hibernation, but that was just absolutely wild. They were there for close to 2 hours in total.
Wow.
It was a crazy encounter from start to finish. The bear got scared off by a truck horn, and the wolves just moved in, and it was just wolves in a carcass um,
Wow.
for a long time. There's three of them. They're beautiful animals. Uh, just an experience that I'll never forget. I'll quickly list just a couple more. Just
Please do. I'm like really fascinated by all these too. I'm like
oh,
jealous, but living through your experiences.
no, for sure. There's so many to choose from, but I would say another one from this year. I was with my best friend from back home. He and I were in Yellowstone, and this past spring, and we had seen a huge male grizzly bear cross the road just randomly a couple of days prior on the northeast side of the park. And we were going back there to try to find some foxes. We didn't have much luck, and so this is a couple days later after we saw this bear across the road, and we see a car stopped right in front of us. We couldn't really see what was going on. Um, and turns out this male grizzly bear was literally right on the side of the road, just crossed a river, soaking wet, and it he just slowly walked across the road, and it got up on this hill literally right next to us, and was just like hanging out on this like this hill had a bunch of rocks, and he went up to the tree line and just kind of sat there and stared at us. I got probably my favorite grizzly bear shots of my life.
Oh,
Just pulled over on the side of the road from my car, 50 yards, 60 yards at most. And there's just this male grizzly bear that's sitting at the top of this hill, just staring down at us. Beautiful, absolutely awesome animal, just crazy, crazy, crazy um, encounter that you don't really get to see. He hung around for several minutes and was like kind of digging for shrubs and grubs as grizzlies
mhm.
do. Just absolutely amazing. And unfortunately, someone got out of their car and started trying to get closer to this bear, which ruined it. He ran into the woods. Not
Of
very smart,
course.
but I got probably my favorite grizzly shots of all time. Just perfect lighting and with some pine trees in the background. It was just kind of perfect until it wasn't. But um,
Yeah.
just yeah, a couple other experiences. There was a bobcat on a deer carcass winter of 2023 that some friends of mine and I got to see for a few minutes on a snow coach tour, which was pretty amazing. Seeing a bobcat defending a kill like that. I mean, it wasn't even a kill. The deer fell off a cliff and it was just along the side
Oh
of the
man.
Firehole River. That was pretty amazing. And then this year I was out on the Beartooth Highway all by myself on the morning of the 4th of July looking for mountain goats. And I was able to find this herd from way far out, just hiked over to them and got to spend some time with them in the early morning. Just if you've ever been, anyone listening or you have been on the Beartooth Highway, it's absolutely stunning. And so I got to spend sunrise with this herd of mountain goats, just photographing them and seeing their family, and all the dynamics of little kids.
Mm.
I turned around at one point. There was a least weasel that was just darting in and out of the rocks, and I was just
Oh
like
wow.
totally surprised. It was pretty awesome. I got to photograph this weasel, and then I turned back around to look at the herd again, and there was a mom and a newborn kid that were just right in front of me that were just eating flowers. I didn't
Wow.
even notice. I was feet from them, not yards, and I just kind of sat there and I was like, okay, it's just us. Like I'm not gonna hurt you. Just please keep eating and go over
Yeah,
to the rest of your
please, yeah.
family. Yeah, so that was fantastic. A solitary encounter in just one of the most beautiful settings in the country. It was pretty unbelievable. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's just so many. Just been so blessed with so many just awesome encounters. The kit foxes this year in the Utah desert. Finding great gray owls with my friends in the Tetons this year in the spring was just beyond amazing, and just yeah. There, I've been to Alaska and had some awesome encounters there a couple of years ago. But yeah, just there's a lot to choose from, and I can go on all day and all night. But
Yeah.
those are some.
Which, yeah, no, those sound amazing. I only went to Yellowstone as a kid, so it's definitely on my bucket
Hmm.
list to go back and
Hmm.
to like, with a better
Yeah.
camera, like be able to actually like take some good pictures.
Yeah.
Which one, like, I know we talked about the wolf being particularly hard to find. Is that
Hmm.
the hardest animal you would say that you look like when you're looking for animals to photograph is the hardest one to find usually?
I definitely way up there. I would say though that like wild cats are definitely more difficult. The beauty of Yellowstone is that there's these wide open valleys and you can see for a long way, and so it's easier to spot a wolf for sure than some of these wild cats such as bobcats, lynx, mountain lions.
Mhm.
So like wildcats definitely like they're intentionally elusive, typically solitary animals unless they're with uh, kittens. And so also like the wolverine, just because there's so few of them and their territory takes them away from people most of the time. So I would say like wildcats and like wolverines, no one sees them in the lower 48. It's kind of
Right.
impossible. And then there's also some species in the weasel family that have been particularly hard for me, probably not as hard for other people to find. Like the American fisher is super hard to find. Pine martens, I've seen them 3 times. They continue to evade me. Those are pretty tough. Um,
Yeah, and
and
they're
then
really small too,
they're
so
really
it makes
small. They're
sense. Yeah.
forest animals. They are hard to spot unless they're moving. And then there's some species of owls that are really dang hard to find. But wolves, I would say, are in probably like the upper echelon of tough to find. But there's definitely some that are more
More tough.
difficult, that are very much on the bucket list for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Also talking about mountain lions, there was an unfortunate picture that you reposted. I where was that again?
It was in Wyoming.
It was in Wyoming. So for people that are listening that don't know, there was an unfortunate, it was like a little cub too, right? Uh
Yearling, yeah.
yearling mountain lion cub that was caught in a trap and then like was found frozen to death in a river. So and this was unfortunate, this is legal though, right? In Wyoming?
Yeah, so as long as the mountain lion hunting and trapping quota is not reached in the specific wildlife management region, it is definitely legal to trap or snare mountain lions. I believe that the regulation is within 13 days. You have to check every trap and snare if you set a trap or snare. But obviously, you get really unfortunate circumstances like a mountain lion cub caught in a snare by an icy river. Temperatures drop well below zero in certain areas of western Wyoming at this time of the year, and so yeah, it is legal, but that's also kind of on par with the rest of Wyoming's state wildlife management policies, and just another uh, chapter in the book of really what I myself and other people would call unethical wildlife management policies that are in place in the state of Wyoming and even in other states like Montana and Idaho as well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have not always been super well informed, obviously, into like the semantics of hunting, but I think
Hmm.
that trapping has always caught my eye on being just, it's to me very like it's just unethical and I'm just trying to think of like the proper word for it, but it just is, it's just like a very cruel way to
Hmm.
kill something. I mean, I feel like, I've talked about this before with other people, but when you're hunting a deer and you're using that whole animal and like you're feeding your family
Hmm.
for months at a time and you're using every aspect of that
Hmm.
animal and you're only killing
Hmm.
one animal, which is
Hmm.
what carnivores do in the wild.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
only take what they need. They don't excess take, and then these animals that are killed very cruelly and slowly and painfully and torturously, um just seems very barbaric, and I feel like in our day in society, like, we shouldn't be doing. I don't agree with that, at least, either, and I know you don't, so, but just an important topic to bring up.
Yeah, there's a lot there, but I would say that I have had really productive conversations with hunters and trappers that are not on the level that whoever snared that mountain lion cub from that Wyoming trapped post. There are definitely extremists in anything in life, especially in the United
Of
States right
course.
now, and so there are definitely hunters, trappers, snarers that give others a worse name than others. But yeah, it is typically, if done correctly, it doesn't necessarily need to be viewed as barbaric as if there's a trap that is able to um, quickly take the life of the animal. It's kind of the equivalent to hunting if you just shoot a wolf or coyote, whatever, with a gun.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's when people get lax on checking, and it's you get, oh, I'm gonna, put a snare right next to a frozen river, and like that. It's just people's decision making when it comes to
Right.
these things gets really dicey really quickly. And so like the willful um, lenience in checking traps and snares in these states is really like when we get into the inhumane, unethical range, where it's like if someone's coming back every day and checking these traps and snares, that's way better
Of
than two
course. Yeah.
weeks. And so I personally, like, I think that trapping and snaring and hunting of a lot of animals is not great, and I'm vehemently against it. But I do want to just make it clear that not everyone goes the full 2 weeks, and there are people that are trying to do the best that they can within their belief
Right.
system, with their worldview of, hey, trapping is important to me. I'm going to sell this fur to whoever, if it's a bobcat or something like that. And there are definitely better trappers and snares out there than others. We just live in an unfortunate world where not everyone shares the
That.
same perspective and could care less on if they check their trap every 24 hours, every 2 weeks, or 2 months. There are people out there that have wanton disregard for wildlife and animal cruelty and things like that.
Yeah, that's a really great point because I never like to loop everybody into one thing. I always like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I'm always like open to hearing other people's perspectives and things like that. And I think it's important to not isolate like a group of people. But I think those are like really great points is like, there's always somebody out there giving somebody else a bad name, unfortunately, right? In
Mm-hmm.
a group of people. So I think that's important to highlight. And yeah, right, it makes sense. Like that I was gonna ask, like that doesn't seem like a great place to like an ethical place to put a trap by a river, like,
No.
that yeah, so I can understand also how in turn that could make people that are doing the right thing angry because it's like, that takes away from
Mm-hmm.
their and then gives them a bad
Mm-hmm.
reputation, then,
Mm-hmm.
um so yeah, I mean it's
Mm-hmm.
not my thing, but I also want to be respectful if that's somebody's culture, that's somebody's thing. It's
Yeah,
much more complicated than obviously just, but that picture was like, and I'll link it in
totally.
the description below, especially for a yearling cub, and
Mm-hmm.
those type of things are obviously so hard to regulate. How do you know where traps are in such a big landscape? So
Mm-hmm. No,
yeah.
absolutely. It's just, yeah, like I just to be abundantly clear, like if it were up to me, we wouldn't be hunting, trapping, snaring a lot of animals,
Yeah.
especially large carnivores that have sensitive population numbers. It's just, yeah, like you have good, better, and best, or below good in some cases. You got bad
Right.
people that trap, or people that trap poorly, and then it just you have the people that do everything they can to make it as ethical as
Yeah.
possible get marred by people that put a snare by a frozen river and leave it for who knows how many days before coming back to check. It's just there's a spectrum to it. There's levels to everything, and like even if I don't agree with it, I we need to work on those that are most extreme and try to rein them in, try to change state policy to have 24-hour trap mandates,
Yeah.
and kind of work from there instead of like you just said, and as I've said, like we don't want to lump everyone into if someone hunts or traps that they're performing the same practices as people that are more on the unethical side of things.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, like it's not personally my, like I wouldn't want to go out and do it. I wouldn't like,
Same here.
it's not my thing, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's definitely important to hopefully like change regulations, and then, if you're going to be out there and doing this, like you should be doing it in the most ethical, responsible way
Mm-hmm.
possible. And I think that that's usually beneficial to everybody, you know, um,
Absolutely.
the whole landscape. So yeah, hopefully that can, you know, I know that there's a lot of really great organizations and everything working very, very hard to try to update that and change that. And you know, hopefully with people like you, with wildlife photographers, also just showcasing, you know, the nature of these animals. Oh, and just like
Hmm.
another point on that too is that carnivores especially take a much longer time to reproduce too, and there's going to be less of them. So you know, it's like when you're killing one off, you're, you know, it's much harder for them to kind of regroup. I guess unless they're coyotes. Coyotes kind of have a special
Hmm.
special
Yes,
dynamic, but yeah, absolutely.
absolutely.
Cool. All right, Ben. Well, I feel like that's a good place to end our chat. Where can people find you and connect with you if they want to see more of your work?
So I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Ben B Wildlife. I also have a TikTok account that is not super active by the same username. Um, yeah, I'm not on Threads or YouTube or anything. Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome. Yeah, those are kind of like my favorites too. I'm not that great at TikTok either, but I'll make sure to link all of your stuff below so people can easily find it. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here tonight. I appreciate connecting with you and chatting with you about all this. So, yeah, it was great to chat.
Yeah, it's great to be on. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, just great to talk to you. And hopefully, those listening can learn a little bit more about wolves and wildlife and things like that. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much everyone for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
bye.
Revel in the moment like a river flowing to the sea. I feel the energy of life force flowing all through me, and I'll allow it all to dance with my body and